What do you think is the most common misconception of MMA?
Just it gives you this mental fortitude and gives you this the characteristics and spirit behind it, and that's what a lot of people don't see.
And we're live today on Imagine Fitting In with Andrew Tate.
Hi, nice to meet everyone.
Welcome, Andrew Tate.
Thank you for having me here, sir.
So, oh my gosh, I'm just so honored to be hearing "sir" so often. So you can ease off on that. No, I'm kidding. It's very nice to hear, my friend. So yes, Andrew and I we know each other through a significant other of Andrew is Jaden Mahone. So shout out to Jaden. Whoop whoop. I met her way back in I believe 2019, late 19.
Back at FitWorks, right?
Exactly. So then, I've been following on Facebook and seeing your adventures. And as I mentioned to you before earlier in the taping, I'm pretty fascinated by MMA in general. And I have, obviously tremendous respect for all the martial arts, every form. And we'll talk about more of the particular ones that you've been experienced. Mm-hmm. And when Jaden spoke of you and her experiences and what you were doing, I said, "Oh gosh, I've never heard of that. I want to know more about that and educate me, and we can educate listeners." And I think it's going to be potentially powerful episode for people to have a perspective, a both human perspective and a realism to what actually goes on, what is necessary to bring that what everybody thinks, like they throw the channel and they see, blood and knuckles, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And anything can go to an extreme.
Right? 100%.
And, just ask those same people that when they're driving on the highway, why does traffic stop when there's an accident? When you don't have to. People are curious, right? Mm-hmm. Curious of like, okay, gosh, right? You have that thing of like, oh my gosh, I hope you're okay, right? I mean, even with competitive fighters, right? You're in the mix and you're like, okay, go give it your all. But ultimately, we want everybody to come out at the end, right? Not too scathed in terms of, right? And so we have to realize it looks pretty brutal and it's, but that being said, let's go back to like raw realism and primitive man, right?
Right. So a lot of people, like to answer your question earlier, if I could sum up in really 2 words what it takes to be a full contact fighter, it's 2 things. It's sacrifice and then heart. A lot of the times with sacrifice, like if you want to take it especially to the next level and push it as far as you can go, a lot of the times that means, and I feel so bad sometimes because like, even for me, I'm an introvert. I'm an extrovert on the mat, but I like having a few people over. I'm very introverted. That doesn't mean shy. It doesn't mean I don't like people, but
right.
A lot of my relationships, it's like I have to be there in spirit a lot of the times because I just spent 3 hours on Saturday training, or I gotta run, or I have to be particular about what I eat, so I eat before and then show up and watch people eat. And a lot of that comes to sacrifice. I only have so much free time. I'm
right.
also working full time and in school. So when things ramp up, a lot of the times that I have to start lifting on a regular basis and running on a regular basis besides making trainings every day.
Sure, conditioning, keeping your stamina and your overall capacity to push yourself for long periods of time.
Right. And, you look at that and, I believe to be academically successful in my career too. So I have to try to get ahead in that, but it's just even without the school, because in IT, you're always going to school. I haven't hit.
Right.
Yeah.
The ball, what they say? I love that analogy, the technology ball.
Yeah.
When it started, my old man was in front of a computer the size of this room, shaking pilots for future astronauts at Wright-Pat.
Oh, wow.
Then now the ball is this big. Mm-hmm. Now it's this big, and people don't understand, like, it's rolling and it has even a bigger imprint in the changes, it's going to get to a point, right? It's interesting. When does it get to the point where human comprehension to keep up with IT?
Right. And I think we're hitting that point a lot sooner than we even anticipate.
Yeah, oh, yes.
So, and yeah, that's definitely a big concern. You can definitely see on a warfront basis too that it's starting to take surface. But going back to what I was saying earlier is I have to limit a lot of the things that I do with my personal time.
Absolutely.
So, and also give it to the right people, which kind of before this we were talking about, making sure you're around the right people who spending your time is going to be worth it. I mean, be friendly to everyone. Like,
of course,
I'm a person who, as long as you have goodwill, I like everyone. Like, or at least I try to be as friendly as possible, but you want the people who are going to stick around. And then, so I said, sacrifice. The other part is the heart. Everybody, if I asked them right now, I would ask them if they like winning or if they like, that's something my coach actually asked yesterday, Vincent Meng. He's like, who likes winning? Who likes the idea of being a world champion? And you see so many hands go up, but again, when it comes to the sacrifice, there's also, that's one aspect.
Reality.
Yeah. And then there's also the heart. So you show up, that's first the biggest battle of whatever you're doing. But when we're running, we're doing 400-meter sprints. We're doing 45 minutes, hour of zone 2 cardio, and it's boring. And that takes heart too.
Let's just explain zone 2 cardio to the general audience. You wouldn't even consider it or even be capable of thinking about, let alone level 1. But go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Excuse me.
That's all right. It's great to be wanted. No, I'm kidding.
So, what zone 2 cardio is? Zone 2 cardio is somewhere between a jog and a walk, and it's one of the more tamer versions of cardio. But what it does is it tries to expand your heart over a long period of time. And what that creates in the ring is allows you to have a higher baseline cardio. So you're fighting for, at the highest level, 5-minute rounds. Amateur, it's usually 3-minute rounds with like a rest in between.
High intensity.
Yes. And so you, even when you're not actively fighting or like when you're feeling out, because there's times where it's very high intensity and there's times where you're both chilling out. Well, you still have to be moving. You still have to be active.
Moving and editing your energy expenditure appropriately for the long game.
Right. And so what that's going to do is raise your cardio level up throughout the whole fight. So even when it's high intensity, you're still going to be able to have a higher volume than you would by just running 400s.
Right.
Now, the 400-meter sprints, going back to it takes the heart, that besides the fighting itself, which is honestly fun, but it's like with the dieting and with the 400-meter sprints, those, after people start showing up and doing those in practice, you can see by the next year how much their ambition stays.
Right.
It just sucks. You're going, you sprint as hard as you can. You have a minute. You got 3 more to do. Oh, and by the end of the season, if we got something big coming up, 6, 8. You're doing 8 400-meter sprints back to back. What, with a minute break? Like
Maxing.
a minute. Yes. And it really takes, like I said, your sacrifice in your heart to be able to be put out of your comfort zone, to be able to work on the things you suck at, to be told, hey, you need to do this. Hey, you need to do that. But that's how you get better. And that's how you get something that's really worth it.
Nice. Yeah. It's, it kind of goes to, right. All things in life, it's like a nugget. You're, passionate, the focus, the fortitude, the ability, the sacrifice that investment of time and whatever energy to see that end goal and have the heart to go through, the ups and downs. Mm-hmm. So Andrew, I always use we start here. It's a great summary of the big picture, and it's very insightful and a reminder to me, and to I'm sure insightful to listeners, and hopefully your audience will be a cast of characters in terms of other fighters and coaches. And again, a big shout out to all the people that are involved, you've been involved with, and just the scene in general. I have high respect for these well-conditioned athletes, this perseverance, this fortitude, the physical capabilities of the human potential. It fascinates me. And that's why I've gone since I found out, discovered I had flat feet early, and after a young experience of being a hell of a wide receiver at street ball with my neighbor and my neighbors, getting to real world. And so maybe that's why I channeled to become like trying to be involved with it. And then I'm fascinated by the human potential. And I'm fascinated by the mechanics and the preparation and the outcomes of like not so fortunate incidences and wear and tear or trauma. And I'm fascinated by how quick we can get people to recover, or how we can the conditioning process and the balance work and the preventive complementary training. Like, because I know the last thing you guys want to hear is like another coach or another whatever. It's more so mine. I would say, like, if you talked about the regular athletics, like say football, mine would be like a very intensive off-season program to complement their regular off-season program, and then it would be it's fully engaged and empowered to, number one, help if there was an injury that's sustained, even it's non-impact, right? You're more likely to be able to, number one, potentially have less trauma than you might have had if you didn't do my kind of training, because I'm a real detail guy. And then also the fact of the ability to recover quicker. And all I know about athletes is they just don't want to be hurt, and they want to get back as soon as possible. And that psychological game of, right. So anyway, that's kind of like my caregiver in terms of, I love working with athletes. Majority have been overwhelmed of like a lot of baby boomers with money and pain. But I would love to, that's why I'm having you on as a guest. I love meeting new people. I love having people consider their options and explore and meet each other and see if there's something out that's complementary to, right? Our careers and, especially longevity.
Yeah.
You're talking to an old guy here. Longevity is pretty important.
Oh, 100%. And speaking of, I've gotten a couple dings and a couple, actually more major injuries. And I will tell you that that's 100% the idea, is getting back into the ring as fast as possible if people want to stay with it. Some people go the other ways, but a lot of the help from people getting back to 100%, it's one of those things that doesn't get as appreciated as much as possible. Same thing with even coaches. Like coaches, I'm talking about gym teachers to physical therapists, is like, man, you may not see them as much as you would like a doctor, or like even someone who serves you food every day. You may not see them, but like even in a short time, the amount of impact that those people can have on your performance,
right,
and just on somebody's character growing up, is something I really hope to see change one day.
Yeah.
And
more value, like teachers almost.
Yes, 100%.
Nice. So let's back up a little bit, and let me, here in Imagine Fitting In, it's all about mentors, healthy lives, and community. And like to get a little background. So, like, where were you born? Where do you call home today? And what was your upbringing? What did your parents do? What was family life like?
So great question. So I've grown up in Beaver Creek. I went to Beaver Creek High School. So I consider Dayton still my home, and it always was. I'm pretty close with my family. I think that my brothers and I have really set out to kind of have more social gatherings to make sure that we stay as close as possible. Really, Justin and Gary, my two brothers, they're typically the more social ones out of the group, and they really try to bring everyone together. So I definitely appreciate that. And I'm never pressured by, also, I want to say my sister-in-law, Sharon, as well, and Gary's significant other, Stephen. All very social, very welcoming, and I never feel pressured by them to, because I'm always busy. I'm always, I got to eat before Thanksgiving. Why aren't you eating? No, nobody ever pressures me because I know.
Of course.
Yeah, I always grew up at Beaver Creek. Like I said, I know a lot of the people in the area. I know all the different schools.
What'd your dad do? What's your dad doing? Your mom?
My mom is a stay-at-home wife. My dad is an accountant and co-owner for a knob manufacturing company called Dimco Gray.
Okay.
Yeah. So, my dad has played a significant impact in my life. My dad always kind of kept me on the right path without having like what some parents do is they'll have a death grip on the wrist and be like, hey, don't do this, don't do this. Well, he helped me lead to the right decisions.
Got it. A gentle guidance as opposed to like being too domineering.
And especially with my schedule, right? Like even yesterday being a day off, I had realistically like 5 hours of free time, and that's on a day off. My dad has number one been there. Like if I need something done with the car, he's like, I go, Dad, can you show me what I need, where to get it? And he just straight up will help me. Sometimes I've had to even drop the car off and be like, please, can you do this for me? Because I have to go make something else.
Sure. That's great. I mean, that's a blessing, dude. That's a super
100%.
Blessing. Yeah.
And, I try to be as independent as possible, but, I like to think nobody's completely independent.
Oh yeah. I mean, it takes a community, and, a family is the nucleus of just one pod of the ultimate community. And as we go out the doors to our neighbors, and then to our schools and to our churches, and then to our civic leaders in our community, and then all of a sudden we public events, and so that community, and that's what one of the things it's a nice nugget. That thank you for saying that, and when we have discussions with when we have discussions with each other, every individual, right? When you have discussions, you're like kind of backboard, right? And you hear yourself saying something, and then you just brought to me about the idea that it's just so potentially powerful that when people think just a little bit more, just take a breath and take a moment, and just to think of the word kindness, and simple kindness. And no matter how busy your day is, how shitty it is, if you can just, try to avoid letting the angst out that you can experience, right? And just don't do that. That's kindness.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And the idea that I created this podcast because I grew up here. I ran the streets. I left at 21. I've lived in 3 major cities and I've been around the world multiple times. And I'm back, and it's a new place. I'm rediscovering my stomping ground, and it's just a fantastic experience. Yeah. And Dayton is just unbelievable. And it's a Dayton-based podcast, but I'm hoping to I like to think I'm bringing the world to Dayton and Dayton to the world of all the people. So let me ask you, did you have any idea when you were a kid, any early ideas as a kid? Do you have any dreams? I'm always fascinated by, I wanted to be this or that.
So actually, I don't know. Well, I do know. I've always been kind of a gamer, and I just latched on to engineering, partially from playing different games like World of Warcraft growing up. In that game, you can make little trinkets that zap someone or mind control them. So I latched onto engineering for a long.
Excuse me, just swing it just a little closer to you, the mic. Yeah,
how's that?
That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Would you like me to restart? Or
oh no! Continue. That's good.
No problem. And with that, for the longest time playing games, in the back of my mind, I knew computers really good for me. I remember being in middle school, and I've told this story a lot of times. I was playing a game called Warcraft 3, and I was trying to get into the router to be able to port forward, which is a technique to be able to allow internet traffic in. And I was, yeah. So
Okay, so this was something that was not typical.
no, I mean,
Okay, you just kind of discovered the idea, like, oh, maybe I could do that?
yes.
That's awesome.
So I was trying to get a bunch of people to be able to come and play on my server, on my games that I were hosting.
Got it.
And I remember looking through this and talking to my dad. I'm like, what is all this? And he didn't know. Of course, the internet wasn't as developed, in the early 2000s, or at least is very bare bones compared to how much you can learn today. And he can really answer it. And just because he never messed with it. And I go, oh, well, I want to know what this is. And so eventually, as I went from, at one point, I wanted to be an English teacher by then to high school, or I was thinking about going into law. But I'm like, I had a old boss, Danny Eade, who I worked at Cousin Vinny's over on Kemp Road.
Okay.
And he said IT would be for you. Sat me down and talked about it, and I'm like,
Nice.
yeah, that would be a good thing. And I never forgot that, Danny, if you're listening.
Okay. Little quick conversation, and that was like a powerful little mentor hit.
Yes. Danny was during a blunder of my life because, I just turned 18, 19.
Yeah, we're awkward.
Yeah, we're still awkward. We think we're adults, and we're not. He made a pretty big impact around that time.
Nice.
But yeah, one thing led to another. I went to Sinclair, which is also in Dayton. Learned a lot there and continued my education and career growth in the area.
Yeah, we love Sinclair. Oh yeah, it's my. I'm mentioning this because it's so, it's impactful for me. It was complimentary that I went to Sinclair way back in the day in the early '80s. Then I came back and I went to Sinclair during COVID, right after COVID. And I always tease everybody because it's like it was the first time I was 3 semesters in a row on the dean's list, and I never achieved that as a kid. Was there a particular teacher, individual, besides you mentioned this gentleman? So where'd you go? Like, so you started going to Sinclair, and you getting more into technology, and then were you physical in high school? Were you sport athletic, or did that come later into like this fighting area?
So that's the phenomenal question. So first I want to say that I had a couple teachers point me into the right direction as far as values go. One being Mr. Roderick back in high school. And then, I wasn't too close with too many of my college teachers. I mean, they were very nice, but,
yes.
It's just a different atmosphere compared to when you're in those growing stages and you have more one-on-one time.
Absolutely. You're more picky and almost choosy, yeah.
Right. And that goes back to our conversation earlier of, depending on how high up the totem pole you get, you only have so much time for so many people to dedicate, and it's not even personal.
Time. Time management.
Yeah. So, what was your question again?
So, did you play any sports in high school?
That's right. So, when I was growing up, I did soccer, I did baseball, I did gymnastics. Really liked gymnastics.
Okay.
But I mostly, as I hit like 5th grade, I really was not really being pushed, but our family always thought I liked baseball and kind of put me more and more into it.
Yes.
I remember trying out for the freshman team. And there's just one problem with me in baseball. I'm great at everything else except throwing a baseball.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You can catch that? You can hit it?
Yeah.
Can't throw it.
Yeah.
It's the mechanics of it.
Yeah. I mean, of course I'm better than like your average Joe, but not compared to the people practicing it. Just the accuracy wasn't there.
Well, think about it, right? I mean, as a fighter, you're straight away after the first fight, like, I have to improve that.
Yeah.
Right? And like, you got to have certain amount to like make it legit to be in the ring in the first place.
Yeah.
So you were humbled, at a young age or whatever. And do you remember, like, so where'd that steer you? Like, you realized that, and did you feel that it all like it could be disappointing to your parents. So like, say, did you voice that? Like, I don't want to do it, or they saw that?
So it was a little expensive. They didn't really see it. They were like, okay, how can we fix this up?
Oh, right.
My dad actually spent, and I have to also say my neighbor.
Okay. What's your neighbor's name?
Honestly,
Oh,
I don't remember.
I'm sorry for asking that. Go ahead.
No problem. The reason why I say my neighbor is because I remember my dad and I being in the backyard and we were practicing pitching.
Yes.
Right. And the ball would always roll into the neighbor's yard and they didn't care.
Right.
But they put something up to stop it. So
help us.
So, So eventually, what got me into martial arts is I had two friends. Like I said, big gamers. We were all skaters.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends started taking Tang Soo Do back at 5 Seasons over. What is it?
Yeah, I know where that club is. I think over there.
Off of Wilmington Pike. That's what it was.
Yes.
And they started talking about it, and he was having a good time. I'm like, hey, I wanted to do that because previously in my life, I grew up with I liked Samurai Jack, I liked Dragon Ball, I liked anything like fighting based. I liked anything of Tales of Heroism. And,
okay, got it.
Myth.
Yeah, it's definitely the hero's journey, my friend.
Yeah, 100%. And so, from there, I gave it a shot. I didn't know any better. I didn't know if it was going to be good or bad, but I stayed there for 4.5 years.
Yeah, and what discipline is that from? What country does that originate from, or an origin?
So it's from Korea. Made. I don't want to say famous because there's other practitioners, but the most common iconic person you can think of is Chuck Norris.
Okay.
Yeah. It's actually funny because my coach, who, again, if you know anything about Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris and what is it, when they fight in the Coliseum, well, we recreated that same picture where, Chuck Norris is throwing a back fist and Bruce Lee is parrying it. We actually recreated that scene when we went to Italy.
Oh,
and
nice.
It's funny because I got the, tall, hairy chest like Chuck Norris.
Yeah. That's classic. I mean, you just with that story, you just reached out to, all the people my age, and then all the young, you and your youngsters and everybody that's in that field and the history and appreciation for, right, those before you, right, the journey. So in your teens and your 20s, you did that for, you said, about 4 years?
Yeah, about 4.5 years. Did it kind of intensively, and again, because two friends got me into it. Well, I remember my dad being like, well, 5 Seasons kind of far away, a little expensive, and it was. It definitely
I'm sorry,
was.
what was expensive again?
Just taking classes at 5 Seasons.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
So in other words, you were still hey, Dad, I want to do this, and then they're like, hey, man, it's okay.
Yeah, and
rubber's hitting the road now.
Yeah. There were other places in the area, and he was like, what do you think about this? Well, I just thought it was cool and wanted to do it with my friends.
Nice.
So, I trained under Malik Young. I had a very good experience there. But for me, after being there for so long, I kind of, in my teenage angst, didn't go about it probably the correct way, but I was kind of like, man, I want to do something a little more full contact. I want to do something a little bit, because a lot of these different arts, I don't want to describe them as incomplete, but there's no better word sometimes, because they may emphasize just on kicking, and that's what Tang Soo Do was, and that's great.
Right.
And just I was looking for something that was going to give me something more well-rounded for full contact fighting.
Well, it's like when you segment it like that, when you're being humble, it's okay, check, kicking.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, I'm going to go and learn how to kick ass, excuse the pun, the best with kicking, and then striking, and then grappling, right? And so it continued. And so your experiences and I know you've now experienced a multiple of the training methodologies and different aspects of it.
Yeah.
Disciplines. But let me ask you, And we'll definitely get into that a little bit more. So I'm very interested. Did you have any, like just recently, because I know you just took your first competitive fight, and congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's going to be more, I'm assuming.
In MMA.
In MMA.
First competitive fight in MMA.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of, do you think that this was just like a natural progression that you just kind of slid into and where you find yourself now in terms of how it's juicing you and keeping you balanced and showing you discipline and keep you occupied in your friends and community? Or did something like a significant kind of circumstance happen? Or did you feel like you just kind of slid into it now? Where are you at now?
So that's actually a great question. To answer that, I want to back up and talk about. I visited a few other places between my bad way of leaving. The place at 5 Seasons. That was on. If Malik, if you're listening, I've grown up now. But of course, it wasn't bad. But
okay.
I left, and I tried.
That's very humble and very much offering humility, and that's that's very nice.
Thank you. And I think I've grown a lot as a person back then since I am now. But, I tried different places in the area, and, maybe I went to this place. Didn't really feel like they had enough structure. Went here, I'm like, I don't know about how I feel about the community. Because sometimes you can face different challenges. Vibe. Sometimes there can be, more about the money, more about, hey, how well do you fit in a bad way?
Yeah.
So eventually I found myself to Meng's, and, while we advertise a complete system, because we do cover all the different ranges of combat and with high level skill proficiency, that's where I kind of was like, I fit in with these people. I understand the structure is here. And I've been there for now, I've 7-8 years, training total for probably 10 or 11. I just, over time, going through the different competitions, finally stepping into MMA, it was like, honestly, it is that same progression that you're talking about, but honestly, as I talk more about Sanda later, because I know you wanted to hear about that. Yeah,
we're gonna get to that.
Yeah, it's kind of like people hold MMA as the holy grail of fighting, and I understand why, and I agree with it. But there are other martial arts like Sanda, Sambo, like there's more I can't even think of, where it's like, man, it's a different twist on the same thing, right?
Sure.
Like, for me, I stepped in there because I felt like I was ready. I felt like I had enough training for specific MMA sport, which, again, the differences for me, I describe as 2 things. The ground, well, really it's 3 things. The ground, punching on the ground, and then the wall work. That's the biggest difference between what I'm used to doing.
Right.
Which
those are literally limitations. Right? I mean, there are literally limitations in terms of challenges that your other disciplines you didn't have to address. Yeah, accommodate.
Now, Sanda, as a full contact sport, we've done from light gloves to heavy gloves, and depending on who you fight for, sometimes there's shin pads or a chest protector. Sometimes there aren't. And a lot of my early fights, we just had a cage headgear, and then you have light gloves.
Yeah.
So for me, also, if I may,
sure,
it's on a raised platform, and there's no edges to it. So a lot of the times when there's a wall in MMA, in Sandai, you're getting thrown off the lei tai. Yeah. So
I mean, that's it.
Yeah. And there's a huge game around that, because if you're up like 8-0, 8 points on the person, but you push them out twice, and you don't get pushed out with them, there's a whole game about that. I'll get into the rule sets a little later, but if you just push them out twice, you win that round. So
just that physicality of you dominating their presence in that space.
Yes, exactly, and it creates more incentives to go towards each other.
Be the aggressor.
Yeah, be the aggressor and hold your ground.
Yeah.
Well, for me, when I took my MMA fight, a lot of it was on the cage. I'm like, oh, I'm comfortable here.
Right,
Yeah.
because you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I've had to deal with this. Now I'm like, I can just really put my energy.
Right.
I totally get it.
But I want to say more in scope of your question before I go too off the waters is, we just spent a lot of the months working on the wall work and working on, with lighter gloves, wearing those again because I hadn't worn them since probably 2021, like 2019, 2021, because I did one federation of Sanda, and then I was moving more into the Wushu. So you have the Kushu and the Wushu. Kind of sounds similar, right?
Yes, yes.
But Kushu, like I said, is where you have the light gloves and the caged helmet. Well, it's like now, okay, we got to get back to that, start working on the wall work. And, oh, you're used to being on the ground doing grappling. Well, now we're adding striking. So
to the groundwork.
yes. So it was a progression in that aspect. And I can learn, if there are any MMA guys and diehards listening to this, I'm no way disrespecting the sport. I can learn just as much from your sport as people can learn about and from Sanda, because of the nuances of the relay tie, the rule sets. But yeah, I felt comfortable.
Well, let me ask you, in terms of that Sanda, okay, what would you say? Like, for me, I'm fair, I'm not a big hound on that scene, but I am interested in it. I know a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm never familiar with Sandal. Now, what would you say? And just this is just your opinion. Mm-hmm. Like the percentage of fighters, like say MMA fighters, because that's an umbrella that potentially that anybody comes in. If you want to compete with MMA, you're going to bring in your sets of experiences, and you're going to come out and create some kind of experience. Mm-hmm. How many people if you feel that are in the game, that are fighters, that really know about Sandal and or have participated and trained in it? Because it sounds like you are a very intellectual, strategic guy with big interests. That you feel me? That hey, a winner is somebody who does sacrifice and looks outside the box, which is not, if it's not looked outside, so what's the percentage, like a rough percentage of like number of MMA fighters that even know about it or experienced it? Oh, just a little break here. Another great episode. I hope you are enjoying Imagine Fitting In podcast. And just a reminder here, please remember to hit the subscribe button, because we love to feel you a part of our Imagine Fitting In family. And if you want to become a brand ambassador, we'd love it if you would share this link on social media, through your email, all your friends. You can help with us with donations, any small donation, big or large, whatever you can manage, to help encourage us and support our efforts here. And you'll find that link in the show notes. And finally, again, a reminder, please refer guests to us. You can find me and contact me at thebalanceprofessor@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. All right? So I hope you continue enjoying Imagine Fitting In. All right? Till next time.
So that's a very great question. And I will say this is a sport it's a Chinese-based martial art. I should say martial art, but sport as well. And over East, it is popular all throughout, right? Now here, most of the people who hear about it, which this is, I believe, we're the people who are forefronting this. The people who know about it are the people from the 80s, 90s. A lot of people think Kung Lee. It was a different time period back then, and more before MMA, it was more style based.
So back in that day, with the popularity of like the word getting out of these martial, the martial arts in general. Yeah, continue.
Right. And then with social media and things like that, and also with more people taking charge in the U.S. For example. My coach and my Sifu Benny Meng, Coach Vincent, they're taking on the reins to be able to try to get a lei tai, to be able to, like, the race platform, and we've been hosting competitions for years, but we're trying to really promote it, and we're not the only ones. So a
Got
lot
it.
of the generation ends up being the 80s, 90s, and then, you're starting to see it in the 2010s, 2020s. Like, people are knowing about it. People are making videos about it. Like, for example, actually yesterday, Sensei Seth, a popular YouTuber, he goes around all the world, checks out different training places, different martial arts. Well, he came to visit us to see what our school's about, our program, because at Meng's, we also have a museum, one of the 2 big museums in the world for Wing Chun, which is made popular by Bruce Lee, Yip Man. So he wanted to know about all that.
And that's here? That's here?
Yes. That's
Really?
on
Where's that
Brant
located?
Pike.
Really?
Yep.
And what's it called again?
Meng's Martial Arts.
Meng's Martial Arts? And you said
Yes.
when you said museum, what do you mean? Like,
So we talk about the history of the museum as well as through the different.
that's the actual location, the museum.
Yes, it's in the school.
It's in the school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nice. And it's on Brent Pike?
Yes, that's
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to check it out, but continue.
Yeah, please. Love to have you. So it talks about the different history of the lineage, and a lot of it ties back to. I'm sorry, I'm just laughing because Sifu, I hope I get this right because there's a lot of pressure riding on this. So I'll give you a vague summary. But a lot of it in China came from when there were invaders. A lot of the top practitioners in the Shaolin Temple went under hiding.
Excuse me.
No problem. Afterwards, after they were taken over, everything went into all those top fighters went into hiding, and I'm trying to think of the term, but basically you couldn't practice martial arts unless it was in the opera. And so a lot of these top fighters who were like, we don't like the new government at that time, they,
I get it.
Yes.
Because let's be real. The physicality and almost the spirituality of the human essence of spirit and being, that physical plane is a strong and essential, and what I call the body temple. And I like to think that I'm always thinking about temple logic. And when you mention the fact that when a group of masses of people in power come in and feel intimidated by so somebody has not their physical capabilities, that you practice this. It's a part of your spirituality and your physicality, and they have a problem with how you think about things, or how you want to not go in, have to get in line and be actually an independent soul. And the masses of power that tried to want to be in charge and control.
Right.
You feel me?
Right.
So I can see why that they go into hiding, but ultimately, it's kind of a classic story of those that are suppressed and overwhelmed and not able to be their true selves, and then they're like, okay, we will branch off, and this is like the beginning of time, when a civilization migrated and bumped into each other in early times, they just battled. Okay, we're us and you're them, and whoever is the victor is going to basically try to enslave or enslave them.
Right.
And then that person that's enslaved, what do? No, our own personal well-being, our God-like energy, where we identify as a community or an individual. This is our God, and this is going to save us.
Right.
And no matter how much you come at me, I have my God, and I will end up doing anything to hold on to that. But I think that's just thank you for that nugget, because I'm heavily into mythology and beginning of times and the early man in our civilization, and that's the whole story. Myths are stories, right? And the rituals are the enactment of, right? Mythology is the enactment of rituals, and the rituals of training and living and eating and community and participation.
Way of life.
Yeah, and so that's to me. That is what's so exciting and so fascinating. If you look back behind you, right there, that painting, you see the Tao, yin and yang, right? So I was raised Roman Catholic, but my father was heavily into Eastern philosophy. And so that was my painting of, I call that enthuse.
Oh, yeah. It's
Okay.
beautiful.
So the Greek word, you can imagine where it comes from, enthusiasm, right? The English word enthusiasm. But the Greek word enthuse literally is translated to the God within.
Oh, wow.
So that being, so getting back to the physical plane and martial arts and that, is it Sanda? Sanda. And from our cultural awareness and being educated on, what becomes like now everything's magnified with social media and the ability to get the messages out. So now, when did you start Sanda, and what do you feel? How does Sanda differ from MMA, and how does that benefit you?
Yeah, so just backing up a second.
Sure.
On MMA, I think some people just sign up for fights and they've trained in their garage or in their backyard or learned on YouTube, right?
Some crazy tough bastard.
Right, and that happens with every sport, right? So for me, Sanda gave me an opportunity to be able to develop certain skill sets in a very clean fashion because of the scoring system, because of the emphasis on explosiveness, and also ring management. So to give you a quick rundown, how Sanda scores is when you use a technique that's like a strike, you have to hit the target, okay? Anywhere besides the knee, groin, and like kidneys, back of the head, like every sport is legal. So when you punch and you have to pull it back, it helps if it makes a sound, and you have to see their body affected, right? Like you have to see the jolt. And if you think about those things, a lot of fighters, when you watch MMA, kickboxing, whatever it may be, those are very specific nuances for scoring, but that shows, in my opinion, clean technique.
Right.
Now for kicks, same thing. So it's 1 point to the leg. So if you kick inside, outside, and if you kick to the body, it is 2. Head is also 2. Usually with head kicks, you're more incentivized by the amount of damage it inflicts. But
right.
So with takedowns can be 3 to 5 seconds. 3 if it's an active, or 3 if it's a passive clinch, which means you're just hugging, not really doing anything.
Yes.
And 5 if if there's active stuff happening. Someone's trying this, it didn't work. Okay, now the other person tries something. So those rule sets, those create a certain amount of explosiveness and clean technique, which has really shaped me over time and helped me step into, what a lot of people consider the holy grail, MMA. But, people talk about that, people say that, but I've had the opportunities to go to different countries. I've had the opportunity to compete on the Pan Am team, on the Wushu. I believe it's pronounced Goshu, but my Chinese or lack thereof is not that expertise. Sure. I was able to go to Italy and fight for a world title. And again, this is full contact sport. I've like I said, I've gone to Brazil, fought in Pan Am's 2 times, bronze and silver medalist. So it's given me a lot of opportunity and given me the opportunity to go against better fighters from other countries. I fought Bermuda, Mexico, Italy, France.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Keep that in mind in France. So yeah, all these travels and these different experiences. Now, what do you think is the most common misconception of MMA?
Most common misconception.
Yes. I'm trying to educate. We're trying to educate the masses who just are gradually passed by, like, oh my gosh, that's so brutal, and the misconception for both the general audience and misconception about actual fighters when they walk in the ring.
Yeah, that's thank you for elaborating on that.
Yes.
I immediately know my answers.
Okay.
People think that when we train that we're trying to give each other concussions every day. They also think when it's in the actual ring, our goal might be able to hurt the other person. Like, we want to win. We want to inflict damage. But, man, we don't really like hurting other people. And I mean, like, we don't mind we expect ourselves to give each other soreness the next day, or maybe get
Sure.
hit in the head real
Right.
hard and then be like, man, I need a week off. But that's in competition only. But not too many people are there to be like, I want to break your arm. Like, that gives me joy. That's a completely different, that's a psychopath. And
Yeah.
I like to think 80 to 90% of people, they have to learn how to be violent. And I think that's a very good thing, because every day, you know, we take life for granted. You know, how many people don't walk around with pepper spray or some sort of self-defense, and at any time you could be thrown into this world that, you know, we as fighters deal with, not one-to-one,
Right.
but man, it's just, it puts me out of my comfort zone and makes me comfortable with being uncomfortable, and I face what reality can be. And you know what most people worry about, which are still valid things, is, man, they didn't make my coffee right, or I'm going to be late for this meeting. Well, when you're used to people, like, I've got scars on my body, you can see it right here under this eye. I've taken kicks, and it's like, man, that wasn't so bad. I you know, you get used to these things, these actual problems, actual worries. So that guy who cut you off while you're driving, you're like, I don't care.
Whatever. Right.
Right. Like, it gives you this mental fortitude and gives you this, the characteristics and spirit behind it. And that's what a lot of people don't see. They just see like someone celebrating after they just, you know, beat a guy into a pulp. But it's like, you know, you watch a lot of those top UFC fighters, like, they help the other person up, or if they're hurt, because at that level, it's very quick time to do damage, and they all know that, they're paid for that, you know, and they're getting good money.
Right.
But, you know, someone starts fishbowling, like where their body's going like this, or they're getting hit,
Right.
the other fighter's concerned because they don't want that to happen to anyone.
Right. And, you know, the thing I hear, a couple things, and like, you know, you're looking for in all the chaos, which we know life is chaos. There's, you know, the you know, the Buddhists have a saying that life is, if you can't accept these three words, life is sorrowful. Yeah. And that, you know, it's your job to find the joy between all the sorrow in the world. And that you know, you talk about like the fighter, right? Okay, I'm going to structure, it's an environment that makes, it's an analogy to life itself, that I'm going to have to put myself in a position of hardship. And I am practicing the art of finding solutions, either avoiding that hardship, identifying it, that competitor, right? The opponent coming at you, and then you putting that mindset into problem solving.
Yes.
And critical thinking.
Yes.
And then you go at it.
Right.
And with that experience, you're going to come back with, okay, what worked, what didn't work, and that you, like you said, with somebody, you know, passing you up or, you know, pulling in front of you, like that's minor thing. And I think that people need to be humbled, because here in America, we have a really cushy life. It is almost obscene how cushy it is. And, you know, I know this firsthand because I've been to 34 different countries in various situations.
Wow.
And, you know, from the dirtest poor to the ultimate rich, for sure. And, you know, people are people.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that the most kindness and the most compassion of vibes and feelings and great food and experiences have always been in dirt poor situations.
Agreed.
And just the, man, I'm going off a tangent here, but I just have to share when I have these nuggets, but you know, thank you, because, you know, you are a generation that my generation, and we said this to our older generation. Oh, you know, what are you thinking? You know, no, that's whatever. But it's all very relative, and what comes, as most people will experience, and it sounds like you're a very mature guy, dude.
Oh, appreciate it.
And you have vision. With maturity and vision, And when you tell me you find something that requires sacrifice and heart, woo, that is nuggets right there.
Thank you.
Those 4 words, and then we top it off like, yeah, I'm looking to put myself in a place to either celebrate to the ultimate level of I earn that, and or to open to taking it on the chin.
You're right.
And still getting back up. And so with competition in sports, we know, like you just look at the education system, the first thing that's cut is the arts and physical education. You can see all around here, I'm an artist. My essence, I'm an artist. My passion is fitness. And the average person, we're so cushy here that, between obesity and diabetes, and people are not even talking about the structural integrity stuff because I see it every day. I have people walking in front of me at 30 years old. They look like they're 80. And they are just morphed into some kind of creature that's been in their basement or something. It is just crazy. So when I get back to physicality in sports, this is my whole point. I create a program and I'm developing it and using it. I could never get into school systems because they'd be like, "Well, do you have a child in our school?" And I'm like, like you're a creep or something? And I'm like, "Well, no." And you go, "Well, do you have this list of certificates and degrees this high for us to consider talking to you? But guess what? It's really nice to meet you, but we have no money. My teachers are still using their own salaries to buy pencils and paper for their kids or whatever they need." So it's like obscene, right? That being said, the average person that we're trying to get like, hey, go for a walk. Go take a breath of fresh air. Go make yourself uncomfortable a little bit. Use your body, your physical plane, and stop looking so inside yourself and spending time like just talking about stuff. Because, dude, you are definitely in my club. You are a participant. You're not an observer. We observe stuff in order for us to participate fully in our lives. And I think that's just I don't want to step off my box right now. So I just kind of stuck up and I don't want to be obnoxious.
You're all right.
I'm humbly letting people know that even my journey with my doubt of self-confidence or like my abilities and being accepted and being acknowledged through my physical plane that saved my life.
Oh, yeah.
In sport, I know there's many stories of people coming from humble, torturous areas, and they go and strive.
Yeah, and I have to say I agree with you. If you really think about it, the things we do in our free time usually either go to it goes towards or should go towards some sort of passion. And martial arts, while it is a scientific based way of how you perform, but it's like that's a passion. It's the way I express myself in combat. It is the way I get my nuances down to improve and get better. For other people, it might be a little more abstract, which is like you're talking about with art, but that's really what gives the backbone that transforms people. And I think that is being neglected and kind of being pushed under the rug more and more every year because, it's great. You can teach people, engineering, fantastic skill. You can teach people math, science, all the basic reading, and we need that. Everybody knows that. I'm an academic as well. But you need, what I think in general people need is to find out how to get their purpose in life. And a lot of that comes back to the things we enjoy doing, and that can be an artistic expression or, like I said, something more concrete. But definitely, no matter what, I don't think there's enough attention to coaches, athletes, arts, music. Like, I just feel so bad for a lot of, especially the art and music industries nowadays, because it's like, man, we take it all for granted.
Exactly. I couldn't say it better. So let me tell you, I came up with this one. You gave me some. Sure. I gave it. How do you feel about your mixed martial arts debut? How did you feel? I'm curious on like with your debut. I would just imagine nervous as hell, but that's really good. Tell me what was it like?
So, no matter what, being in a different environment, different rule set, you never know what to expect. For me, it's never the battle of like, ooh, am I gonna get hit hard, or, you know, it's always for me I always battle the anxiety of the performance itself. Like I almost wish
Expectations.
yes. It's not so much crowd, so much people, but I want to thank. I'm trying to think how to say this. It's not so much what the crowd thinks of me. In fact, it's funny because my coach and brother, right? And I mean brother in a kung fu sense.
Yeah.
He had the whole sparring class before I went to compete. My last sparring day, 2 days out, he had played my walkout song, and I was going to do 3 rounds. Well, he had the rest of the class booing me. And I'm sitting there, he's like, does that bother you? And I'm like, no, I don't care. But for me, it's like all the people who are looking up to me, all the people who are hoping I do well, my
Yes.
dad's watching me,
Yes.
like that's,
You were in your inner self and what the things that were really prioritized and important in your life.
yes.
And because, television or this media, this coverage, this sharing of that experience, it's like a passing visual, like, oh yeah, what's this guy doing, and it's that surface judgment of like, and it's that flash in a can. And so
Yes.
now since because we see so much, we just take so much for granted, like, there's nothing there, you know what I mean? And I think it's another great nugget, dude, that we're overwhelmed and inundated by these images now, even at the freaking gas station, and that's why I left advertising, is that you get numb. You're literally forgetting what it is to be a human being almost, and you have to take a break and say, listen, that person is ultimately concerned about the same things I am, the down and dirty, right? Roof over your head, food in your belly, loving whatever environment, being able to do what you want, survive, blah, 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 right?
Right.
And it's like that's a real nugget. I think it's great for young people, anybody that listen. No matter the circumstance, to judge, right? To err is human. To err is human. To forgive, divine. But that judgment of just surface and not knowing, like I go back to kindness. Okay, if you can't necessarily think you can do an act out of a kind act, maybe just start by not saying a negative one or a negative something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great point.
You know what I mean? It's kind of simple. But what about that first bout specifically revealed to you as a competitor?
Yeah, so you're talking about the first round? Is that the first bout?
That first bout, like what did it reveal to you as a competitor? Did you have any like kind of like you're in the ring going, oh, or did you have it much more later after it was all the adrenaline?
So honestly, that was probably the most calm and relaxed I've ever been. I can think of 1 or 2 other times maybe, but for me, I'm an analytical type of person, and especially with a lifting background, because I lifted that's what I wanted to do between my break in martial arts. We have a tendency, especially as men, when we face challenge, to tense up.
Yes.
Right. And 10 years in the game, like 11 years, it's gotten better. But always bit by bit. But that was the calmest I've ever been.
Wow.
I felt completely in my element and control. But for me, the wall, what I drilled and what I was told was a lot different in action than I anticipated. So like I said, I can learn more and more from the sport. But yeah, I felt comfortable otherwise. A lot of it, again, was just trying to minimize as much damage as possible because I have national team qualifiers coming up. But I felt really proud of myself because a lot of the skills that we had been working on with feints and different things with my hands, my head movement had really been showing.
Gelled.
Yes. So
Nice.
I was happy with it. I was happy with my performance. I wasn't, it's kind of funny because, I've been working really hard to keep my chin tucked, and the way the camera angle was, I got hit going in and my head went up as and getting hit up here is, pretty tame. That's where you want to get hit because it's the hardest bone in your body.
Right.
And you hear the commentators go, man, I don't like Andrew going in with his chin up. And I'm like, oh, like I ended up getting hit. My chin wasn't up or I'd be, out.
Right. Out cold.
Yeah. So, I felt really good about it. It was fun. I loved the venue.
Yeah.
Though I do kind of feel like people not knowing about Sanda or some of the traditional background, sometimes it's very common that we kind of get swept under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, depending on the place, for the right reasons.
So do you think is the Sanda, is it just such a such a kind of a pinpoint efficiency kind of thing? Like what separates it, the ultimate art form, the practice? Is it goes to just great detail, or how would you describe that? Like what makes it so different than the typical or others?
So when you take people down, which you get points awarded for it, you get stood back up. And then, so you have to really choose whether the energy is worth it for when you take people down. That and the technical scoring with when you strike and being pushed off the lei tai, it's a very technical game while still being a real full contact sport.
It sounds like it's very like, yes, you're good there, and you're good there, and you're like, you've achieved that, and this is what the art for. It's almost like an art form of like going, yes, that was perfectly. It's almost like a level of excellence.
Yes.
Right, magnified.
Yes.
And heightened, and that while when you shoot it into like an MMA environment where there's a little bit less structure and it's a little bit more chaotic and wild and variety, that hey, every little, and I know you know this, every little effectiveness is going to be one more closer to you being on the winner or the right, as opposed to the other side of it. So that's interesting in terms of that's just my take,
Yeah, and that I believe your take is right, but I also want to say it also depends on what level, like with anything we're talking about, because if you look at those top end UFC fighters, they're as real and as talented as you can get, but it's just as comparative to the pro teams in China, like where it all started. Like,
sure.
They have 4 different teams and they live, sweat, and breathe. Sanda can kick before you can even realize that the kick started. But you're right. It's like a lot of times, and this happens with all full contact sports, is, it's all to the scoring criteria, but anybody can get a lucky shot. And especially when you have a lighter glove, which condenses where you're putting the impact. Granted, I think bigger gloves you can hit a lot harder with because they protect your hands.
Right.
You can kind of see that where 2 people will brawl or somebody will get this big looping shot and just knock someone cold. Now that can happen in Sanda, right? But it really tries to do as best of a job as it can to reward technical efficiency, reward the, like I said, pulling back your punches instead of just pushing your punches, things like that. Like quick, explosive takedowns.
The ultimate execution.
Right.
Right. So let me ask you, do you find the energy of your coaching to be the energy of your coaches to be inspiring and even contagious?
Oh, yes. Yesterday, again, during class, there was a quote that was said, which I hear every once in a while during the season, which is, if you want to make someone a world champion, if you want to be a world champion, what do? You make the whole room a world champion. And that's kind of the attitude we try to bring at Meng's Martial Arts. I will have to say, I have many teachers that I work with, right? But specifically, the coach I spend the most time with is Vincent Meng. He's head of we call it the elite Tiger team program, Tiger meaning the physical. And I spend the most time with all of the elite, but specifically him as a coach. We've had each other's backs through thick and through thin, in and out of the ring. But like I said, I couldn't do it without Sifu Benny Meng. I've had other people, in the background that have helped me on different things with technical, whether it be on the ground. It really does take a village, and I don't have enough time to list everyone off, because immediately I would list my girlfriend Jaden.
Sure.
there's all these different people. My diet, that's a big thing Jaden has helped me work with.
Right.
Jaden has helped me work certain drills between her and I, like striking, which is good training for her too. So it's like, it really does take a whole village to be able to work.
Nice. Nice.
I also want to shout out to...
sure. Shout out, please.
Professor Michael Cox. He really helped me with a lot of the wall work, which ended up coming out majority in my MMA fight. And like I said, I can't say it enough. I'm not dogging MMA. I have plenty to learn from the sport, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
And I would just mention it now that, you mentioned Michael Cox and the whole community. I like to think that, it's not like this is an MMA podcast, right? Mm-hmm. I would like to think that, and I bring all kinds of guests from all kinds of backgrounds here. And, that physical plane I talked about is why, I'm the balance professor. Mm-hmm. So I believe that's a key integral part of the body temple, obviously, and our lives forward. And it's your house, right? Mm-hmm. Both my big passions are trying to improve the basic education, fitness education in our school systems, and have them understand how powerful that the physical plane is in terms of having them learn everything and learn anything, their capabilities, but also I'm going to go back to Michael Cox and, looking to just consider an open invite for any fighters, all those people out there that would be interested in sharing their story. I'd love to have them. To expand the knowledge of any martial art and just the sport in general, and the dynamic of the competitiveness and the grit and the fortitude and how that builds character. And it's just a different kind of community. It doesn't always have to be a baseball team or the football team or all that kind of stuff. And it sets itself up apart to be a community of individual based competitors. Yes. You feel me? That like as I feel that all my life as an artist, that I had to get comfortable like saying, yeah, I'm an artist. And to be put into some kind of category of like not understanding me. And then the multiple people you meet that are fellow artists, like you meet fighters, and what ends up going back is you end up having the basic human experience, a conversation to get where you are.
Yeah, and that's another thing is we like to say kung fu life, and another saying with that is how we do something is how we do everything, right? And that goes with the hard things and also the easy things. Right. Not trying to hijack your
No. That's beautiful. That's a complimentary, and for you from your generation, that's a message that we want to shout out to the world. We want to know that, like, right? Independent sports, team sports, the traditional ones, the other ones, the arts, the sciences, the humanities, the teachers, all this stuff needs to be so much more like, hey, we're all these physical creatures with these physical planes walking around bumping into each other. Mm-hmm. And, the capacity to have time enough to say a kind word or not say anything at all, and or be, my main emphasis today of my purpose is, again, educating the next generation and trying to have them comprehend what's coming. When we won't even get into AI and that kind of shit. Technology, that's just a whole game changer on another level. It's almost too much to even think about. But to encourage mentors, right? Being mentored, find a mentor. If you're feeling you're like a little bit lost or whatever, sometimes we don't know we're being mentored. But the idea is I'm trying to pass that forward to where a young person's life can be changed forever by a 2-minute conversation at the right time, and or with a 2-year relationship, starting them out. So I want to encourage mentoring. So,
and speaking of that, I have a couple friends of mine that always joke when they tease me. They go, "Hey, it's part of your mental training." Like, it goes back to that where every opportunity you can learn from. But just to give you an idea, right? Like, Simo, which is the name for mother. So Kung Fu typically goes by a family type system of how all the terms are. So Sunmi Park, or I'm sorry, Sunmi Meng, sorry, she straight up said, or she was the one to go and get all the, like, you need tape, gauze, all these different things. She went and ordered all the seats for everybody to sit on, like the big table, coordinated all of that. And then just where I train every day, Sifu Meng, he also was the person to help coach me, right? He sat in my corner. He's the owner of the school, right? The main instructor, the main owner of the museum. It's like it really does. Those are just, I've named off 4 or 5 people already. I haven't even gone through all my teammates who show up specifically so I can train.
Right. That village.
Yes. And it really does like take all these different components, and you want to be the person to experience it, but also give back. And that's what creates a true community.
Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give someone who's considering exploring, a career? I don't want to say a career, an experience in combat sports or different disciplines and stuff.
That's another great question. Going back to what you were saying before about how, I feel like a lot of people, when they get out of shape, because that's a lot of the community of people who want to do it, is they've always thought of it and, it might be too hard, or I'm not in shape, I can't do that. The big thing for people when it comes to living a healthy lifestyle is to find something you like, and you got to go and test the waters, try different things. If you like gaming, well, martial arts is a video game to me. So for people trying to get into that scene, if you feel like you are one of those people, the first thing you want to do is find a school. Like, if you're being serious about it, go and talk to some of your friends who already do it. And then you want to make sure that you find a school that's right for you, because that was really big for me. I would have never made it this far if I didn't have the people I'm surrounded about. And, a big important factor of that is going to be also the skill level of what you want. But if you don't like you could have the best training, but if you hate being there every day and people don't care about you, right?
We go back to that. Like, if somebody doesn't have any friends and they're like individually thinking about this, maybe they're thinking about it outside their current friends. They're like, maybe I want to go do that. That sounds kind of interesting, but would they, what would somebody think about me or whatever?
Right.
And then, them going and trying to find a school like that, or finding that energy, which you mentioned when you walk in, right?
Right. You have to read the room, and you have to have somebody who kind of knows to be able to read the room. So yeah, I mean, the biggest hurdle for most people is just putting yourself out there and taking that first step to take the class.
Right.
If you're talking about from a competitive standpoint, I'll use my job. I haven't talked much about my job, which is actually ethical hacking. So if you hang out with a lot of people who are super smart people, super goal-oriented, trying to be cutting edge of the industry, well, if you kind of hang out around them, you're going to learn the same things they do. You're going to pick up the same habits that have brought them to the success that they've had.
The company you keep.
Yes, exactly. Quite literally. Nice pun. So that happened for me in a sport passion, and that happened to me in a professional passion.
Nice.
I kind of kept using these connections built through martial arts and through work to be able to keep propelling my career. And it works the same in martial arts. If you hang out with a bunch of people who are trying to be pro MMA fighters, top of the top, well,
right.
If they are having that success, then you're going to be in the right environment.
Right.
Now, of course, like anything, you can be great, and you can probably relate. You can be Picasso at actually making art, like painting it, but teaching it is also a completely different aspect.
Right.
And later, I'm teaching today, actually, and
Nice.
I tell them all the time that, I learn just as much from you guys as I'm teaching you as well, and you can learn from every other person.
It's
so,
like, my one of my first clients, 30-some years ago, he goes, "You're a natural teacher," and the reason why I'm a natural teacher is because I'm an inquisitive student.
Oh, I believe that.
right? And so your process of that going into that environment, right?
Yes.
And creating those opportunities to a degree fumble over yourself while you're trying to achieve something that you're told that is like the next step or this process that's going to, but then, keeping that open mind where it's like, if you're not nervous going into something, then you're not really learning. What I mean?
Yes, 100%. And people think, I've done all these different, like, karate tournaments tend to be light contact.
Yes.
And, there's still that pressure to perform. But, like, even after doing it for 10, 11 years, it's like you never stop being nervous. It might be better, but it's like if you're doing anything that matters, you're going to be nervous, and so is the other guy. And,
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Because it's a mystery of the outcome.
Right.
Like, and then what do you do now? You have the benefit of high quality video to relive it every single split tenth of a second.
Yes.
Not like back in the day where you barely get a film footage, right?
Right.
And that's a huge analytical benefit, right?
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
To either keep you going or like I'm running away. I got to get out of here because I can't keep up with that. You know what I mean? Like reality sets in. But
yeah, just to tie off your question on my end is like you want to make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people. Mm-hmm. Knowing what you're getting to is very important. Some places are about creating as many black belts as possible, and if you want a black belt, go and get it. You're not going to respect it, but if you want, you just got to make sure that, hey, we pressure test what we do. We really make sure it works, or we're focused on competition. Those are all green flags.
Everybody's going to know you earned it.
Yes. And you don't have to be like UFC champion of the world. You could take one full contact fight, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You could take, maybe all you want to do is, there's forms competitions too. Where people display their skill.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
And that's fine too, as long as you know that, forms competitions aren't the same as full contact fighting. Full contact fighting isn't 1-to-1 with self-defense, but as close as you can be.
Yeah.
That's a big common misconception is, if you go and box somebody who's trying to rob you, they're not playing fair and say,
oh right.
Yeah, you're going to break their nose. The cop comes up.
Yeah.
Well, guess who's getting taken? Oh, this guy just jumped me.
Right.
You don't want to even be in that situation in the first place.
Right. Yeah. God willing.
Yeah. And you don't even want to hurt another person. Why? I don't want to.
Right.
When we do this, like I said, when we do this dance in the ring, we both sign up for it, and it's for all the other benefits. But that's just a part of it. Sometimes I wish we were just machines so we could go at it, break each other to the last part that we have, and then just repair and do it all again.
And so, I'm sorry, how old are you?
So I'm 29 turning 30.
29 turning 30. Mm-hmm. Well, Andrew, you have a great head on your shoulders.
Thanks, sir.
I want to compliment your parents, all your coaches, your teachers, your friends, your world. It's great. That's what it's all about. Is the community, and I applaud you on your efforts, current, and I'm sure you're going to keep doing great things. Do me a favor, whatever that ethical hacking is that you talk about. I don't want to ask a question about that, but take care of us. Keep us safe because we can just imagine what that is about. But yes, it's been a real pleasure having you. Again, open invite to even you down the road if you feel like you want to come back as a guest again and talk about other experiences or some kind of whatever, or bring a friend that would be a powerful experience to share with the community. Mm-hmm. And it's all about, it's all about empowering others.
Yes.
And spreading and passing it forward and encouraging mentors, being mentored, and especially when you're 18, 19 years old or whatever, and channeling that energy.
Yes, sir. I wanted to say, guys, it all starts with you taking that leap of faith out of your comfort zone. And if you do that and you inspire that in other people, I'm telling you, my coach teases me all the time. He says I was born with 2 left feet, and look where I'm at. I'm competing on an international level, and I'm not doing this to talk about how great I am. I'm saying you can do this too, and I've helped others influence. I'm starting to take that coaching teacher role, and it's phenomenal. It's great. It's great for everyone. So go out there, put yourself out there, raise other people, raise yourself. It's just going to help everyone.
That's just fantastic. So, Andrew, thanks again. And all right, kids, till next time, take care.
Professor.